fantastic. I'm really looking forward to the next presentation as well, because the company managed to pull off a feed not a lot of companies can do, is actually sell projects for a profit and actually make money and keep dilution down to a minimum and find alternative ways of financing. It's Eric Roth. He's with Capella Minerals. You've presented before at Deutsche Goldmesse, so it's great to welcome you back. And please go ahead and present your projects in Finland.
Okay. So thanks, Kai, for the great introduction, and welcome to everybody here. And what I will do is give you an introduction for those who aren't familiar with the company. So Capella Minerals we are fundamentally a Canadian listed company, but we do have a secondary listing here in Frankfurt as well. We do also have an OTC QB listing in the US. So what we're going to talk about today is the focus of Capella. For some of you, we are known, others maybe not so. But we are a company that's had a lot of success over the years. If you look at the team involved behind Capella, we had big discoveries in the last decade. We had the Hot Maden discovery in Turkey. Before then, I was CEO of a company called Deutsche Gold Mines. So we are a group that's had a lot of exploration success. We are now focused essentially on Scandinavia. That's the main area of work for us. So we have copper, gold. Well, if I go through the portfolio, we basically, if I start on the western side of Scandinavia, so in Norway, we are operating an old mining district. So these are copper cobalt districts. And for some of the people that you may not be familiar with, but for example, the Locken mine, that was in production for over 300 years. I think people have forgotten how much copper Norway actually has produced historically. And we have this very large portfolio. And we also have a lot of projects in Finland. But what Kai was alluding to at the beginning there is, so obviously markets are very difficult for the small companies. So what we've elected to do is we have this first-class group of projects in Norway. But what we've decided to do is combine those with another company that has some nickel assets in northern Norway and create basically what would be the very first Norwegian listed, managed, and obviously all the projects are in Norway, company. So basically it's a battery metals company. We, as Kai mentioned, so now keep in mind that Capella as a company, the entire entity is only trading at 5 million Canadian at the moment. So that's what the market cap of the company is. So keep that in mind as we go through the projects here. So the deal that we are talking about here, this essentially combining our Norwegian copper assets with these nickel projects in northern Norway, that will get Capella $5 million in cash and $2 million in the Newco shares, and those Newco shares will be distributed to Capella shareholders. So it's a really good example, I think, of how broken the Canadian markets are at the moment, that you can actually sell a part of the company for a lot more than the entire company is worth. And I think that's something you'll see, not just with us, but you'll see that with other companies as well too. So the markets are not doing the proper job of valuing companies. So basically, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but to continue around outside of Norway, and one thing I will say about Norway too is we've had a lot of support locally. We've had every permit we've ever asked for, we've received. We have a lot of community support, so it is a very good jurisdiction to be operating in. The reason behind the deal simply is that the markets are very difficult. When you're a 5 million market cap company, it's impossible to raise big chunks of cash to move the projects forward. So we took this decision. We said, okay, let's list these assets in Norway, access local capital to take the projects forward. And just as an aside, there's 3 companies or mining companies listed in Oslo. So basically, it's not like Canada where you have 2,700 companies fighting for a very small pool of funds. So what does that mean for Capella going forward? So Capella will then mostly be focused on Finland. We are working in the northern part of the country in the central Lapland greenstone belt. So there we have copper gold assets, and which one includes an old Anglo-American project, which was generated over a decade ago and was never drilled. And that's one of the first cabs off the rank for us. We're also involved in central and southern Finland in some lithium joint ventures, and I'll talk a bit more about those in a moment. So just quickly in terms of the project portfolio, and again, keep this in the context of we are just trading at 5 million Canadian. So we have 2 projects that are very close to resource status. We have one which is Hesjegruva. This is one of the copper cobalt assets in Norway, which will ultimately become part of this new Norwegian entity. We also have a gold project in Manitoba, which has 10,000 meters of drilling on it. It's a joint venture with Agnico Eagle, and we are looking at options now. How can we bring value to Capella shareholders for that particular project? And really, just to summarize, and then after that, we have quite a long list of projects that are ready for drilling, some of which have permits in hand. And then, of course, there's a number of projects further down that pyramid at the target generation phase. So 2024, so I'll just park the Norwegian side for the moment, because remembering that will bring us $5 million cash on the back of an IPO being concluded, plus $2 million of Nuco shares, which we would just distribute to Capella shareholders. So that will essentially leave us as a Finland-focused company. And as you're probably aware, you know, Finland is a very good jurisdiction for mining and exploration. It's very well known, certainly throughout Europe and also for Canadian investors as well too. So our main focus in terms of work going forward will be, we are managing what we call the Northern Finland Copper Gold Project. This is the Central Lapland Greenstone Belt. And the Central Lapland Greenstone Belt, you may be familiar with other large discoveries like Ikkari, which is Rupert Resources. You have Orion, you have Kinross active there. And of course, Agnico Eagle operates the largest gold mine in Europe, which is called Kittilä. So it's an area where there's a lot of companies that are active, and you'll see lots more discoveries, I think, going forward. And then I'll also talk briefly about the lithium projects we have in central Finland. So this year, both of them are joint ventures. The biggest one in central Finland is it's a joint venture with European Energy Minerals. They basically had a very busy summer, so we had lots of field teams out there. Lots of good things came out of that. I was just out there on site a couple of weeks ago, and it's pretty exciting, I think, what they're finding. But I will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So I don't want to get too bogged down in technical, but just this is the rock star, I guess, if you like, in terms of our projects. The one that's closest to drilling. This is a project that we will be drilling in Q1. This is what we call the Killero target. I mentioned there was an old Anglo-American target. And interestingly, so what basically happened here was they had a very active program in northern Finland about a decade ago. They made a big discovery called Sakatti. That basically became the center of gravity for the company, and they left all of these things lying around without being tested. So we've been able to pick up this property, and this Killero area has drill permits. It's ready to go. The key story here is that it's a very strong geochemical anomaly. So it's running very high copper, very high gold numbers. And these are numbers, just to put it into context, these are way off the scale for this part of the world. And we also have some nice geophysical data. So the target is very well defined, and the plan is to be drilling this in Q1 2024. So really what we're looking for here is well, essentially a world-class copper-gold discovery. But it's a really interesting target. We're really fired up and looking forward to getting some drilling done there in Q1. So that then brings us to central Finland. So this, as I mentioned, is being managed by our joint venture partner. This is European Energy. So we have a very large land holding in central Finland, just to the southwest of the Keliber mining district. And Keliber, you may be aware, is that's a Sibanye-Stillwater operated project. They've just started building. The resources there are about 17 million tons at just over 1% Li2O. They've also started the construction of a lithium hydroxide plant on the coast there at Kokkola. So this is a long-term investment in this district. And I guess to sort of put it holistically, the lithium hydroxide plant that's being built on the coast is being designed for a 50-plus year mine life, but we know that the mine here currently has 10 to 15 years of reserves. So what that's saying is that there's a lot more capacity going forward that they will need to fill either from their own project or from neighbouring projects such as ours. So some exciting things coming out of there. The interesting thing here is, so what we're talking about here is these are hard rock lithium deposits. So these are what we call, they're basically spodumene and pegmatites. And this area in general has been very poorly explored over the last 50, 60 years. And so therein lies the opportunity for us. And essentially what we're doing is we're following boulder trains. So a combination of where we see lithium-bearing boulders on surface, following them back to the source, and also what we call this base of till work, where basically you drill through the till cover and look for metal anomalies below underneath. So this, there'll be a few more updates coming here in the next weeks, I would think, but basically we've now wrapped up this summer. There's a lot of assays pending, and we should be in good shape to have a really busy summer next year on this. I did mention too some precious metals. I won't talk much about these, but we do also have an interest in 3 joint ventures in the Americas. These are specifically the gold projects in the case of Canada, and there's a gold-silver project in Argentina. So the history is these are projects that have been with the company for many years. As we've moved across to Scandinavia, more the base and battery metal side of things, these projects have just been running in parallel. One of them, Domain in Manitoba, this is the one I mentioned, is a near resource status. Very good grades. It's 70% Agnico Eagle and 30% us, essentially. And we are looking at, together with Agnico, what are the best ways to add value to Capella, because we obviously get no value within the portfolio for these projects. The second project is Savant. This is a joint venture. Steve mentioned earlier too, they have a lot of discovery group people involved in their company. We also, Prospector is one of the discovery group companies, so they're very active, very dynamic, very strong technically, and they're obviously very well known in markets as well too. So we're very happy to have Prospector as a joint venture partner on our Savant gold project as well. Then the third project is Sierra Blanca. This is an epithermal gold-silver project. This is one that we worked on many years ago. It's now in the hands of Austral Gold, which is a relatively small Chilean copper producer. And we're looking forward to looking at ways to add value for Capella from this portfolio as well. So I did mention at the top of the talk briefly, we've had obviously a very good track record. I think a lot of people who know us, they understand what we're capable of doing. Our forte is we've had a lot of discoveries over the years. I mean, I could go back for many years, but the key thing is that really our forte is identifying those early stage projects that have the high potential. I should also add, we only look for high-grade assets. That's sort of our main, one of our main criteria. And of course, it's obviously got to be an area that we can operate in successfully. So we've had a lot of success over the years, focusing on that, making the discoveries, getting these projects through resource status, and then getting them through the mining type studies. So capital structure, as I mentioned, market cap at the moment, actually it's about 5 million right now. So I think when you look at the portfolio, you think, well, it's kind of crazy. But I guess Steve also in his talk before, you know, when you get a 6 million market cap and 4.5 million in cash, that's when you realize the markets there's a lot of untapped value to still be made here with companies. In terms of our shareholders, our largest shareholder is actually a private group out of Austria called Fruchtexpress. Now they actually, they do have an investment arm where they invest in a number of mining companies. They came to us through, they were invested in a company that was operating next to us in Norway, and they came into us basically on the back of the copper cobalt assets. There's a couple of corporates there that you probably would be familiar with, Sandstorm Gold and EMX Royalty. So we have a couple of corporates on there, and we also have a couple of institutions, which includes a large Swiss bank, which has a green fund as well. So we do have a lot of support, and I'm looking forward to getting that market cap to something a bit more respectable. So anyway, just a couple of words, just a reminder, I won't go through the text, but this agreement to sell the Norwegian assets, we just announced it 1 month ago, just a little over a month ago. Again, the concept is we'll combine our copper cobalt assets in Norway with a group of nickel projects in Norway and create an Oslo listed company. As I mentioned, the transaction to us is worth 5 million cash and also 2 million in Nickel X shares. The company, of course, won't be called that. It'll be called something else upon listing. But again, it just shows you that we can sell part of our portfolio for 7 when the whole company is only trading at 5. And that's it. And that's sort of the company in a nutshell. I think you'll see a lot of, you know, aside from the Norwegian sale, I guess that transaction there, you'll see lots of action here in 2024 on the Finland side of things. I mean, up in the northern part, we'll be drilling Kilero in Q1. I forgot to mention there's another target in that property, which is called Santapora. It's the extension of the old Urukumpu mine. We plan to drill that next summer. So in northern Finland, we expect to be drilling 2 projects next year. And of course, the other thing to mention too is those the lithium joint ventures. So going into 2024, on the back of the sale of the Norwegian assets, we'll be very cashed up. We won't need to go back to the market to raise money. We'll have 5 million, so we'll be very well funded. The other thing I should mention too is that people who are shareholders at the time the transaction closes, they will get the Nickel X shares. And remember that will also be another share that shareholders will get, which gives them exposure to upside to success on that Norwegian region portfolio. So really, Capella shareholders will end up with 2 shares. One is a Capella share, will be a very well-funded vehicle, and the second thing, of course, is the Nickel X shares, which also will be a very well-funded vehicle. So really, you get shares in 2 companies going forward. So I think it's a good outcome for shareholders, given the difficult markets. I think it's probably one of the best options we have going forward. So we are around. Obviously, if there's any questions afterwards, we're happy to step people through if there's any questions afterwards.
Fantastic. Awesome. Eric,
Thanks,
thank you so much. We don't have time for questions now, but as you said, afterwards, you'll be around for the next 2 days.
Sure,
so
no problem at all.
Appreciate that. Fantastic.
Okay,
Thanks so much.
Guys.